Yeah, good morning, everyone. It's another meetup. We are glad to have you. It's another fabric meetup. We had one last month for exam preparation. So this month also we are going to be continuing in that series where we are going to be talking about preparing for Microsoft Fabric exam so that you can become a certified fabric analytic engineer. So this month we are going to be having my boss and also my colleague Temidayo Moni is going to be walking us through preparing for the 600 exam. Last month, um, we did the same thing, but we have a lot of people in the community that are yet to write their exam. And we know that most of us in this part of the world are actually using the flu voucher because of the restriction around
Yeah.
being able to register for the exam. So that's why a lot of people are going for their exam sometimes this week because
Yeah.
the deadline is June 20th. So this is going to be the last series concerning exam preparation. So in case you missed for last month where my humble self delivered one of the exam preparation session, you can catch up on the link itself available on YouTube right on this same channel. And I will also add link to the sources that we can use to prepare. So today we are going to have Temida walk us through the same session, and then we are going to start that right now. So before I hand over to Temida, I just want to give us a brief profile of who Temida is. Temidayo, when I was talking to him, he said he's a digital entity. As I mean, if Temidayo is a digital
Interesting.
entity, then where does that put me? So let me just give you a very brief introduction. Temidayo is a data and infrastructure migration expert and a data consultant with over 5 years of experience. He currently works as a senior data engineer for Snapmate Solutions and also consults with multiple industries in oil and gas, fintech, NGO, and energy to make their data make sense and help migrate from on-prem to cloud. Belinda is award winner of who break down complex processes to simple things people can understand. I mean, what best can you ask for than to have someone that is going to break down the complex terminologies, concepts that we have on the Microsoft Fabric. So, by show of reaction, extra clap, let's welcome Temidayo on stage. So, Temidayo, you can introduce
Okay.
yourself and you have the floor.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Good evening. Good afternoon. Wherever you are in the world. Hello. Okay. So I will just start. I'm actually okay. Just say it's a quick tip, right? So one of the things that actually helped me. I won't really say um I'm the I'm good or anything, right? So one of the things that actually helped me with the fabrics was because I already had fundamentals in Power BI, because the whole concept of fabrics actually is both combination of Power BI and cloud, that's cloud engineering and everything. So I already had certification in data engineering, certification in enterprise data analysis using Power BI and Synapse, and also certification in Power BI. So it made my process a little bit easier, right? Because I actually understood most of the concepts that was being hexed and stuff like that. So I didn't really take more time. Um, but I will also give you like what I plan doing today is to like give more like a run through of my own process of how I studied it and how I prepared for the exams. Again, so I'm going to share my screen. We'll just do a little bit of presentation. You guys to like know what fabric is all about and what it entails, right? So I'm sharing my screen right now. I don't know, Francis, can you confirm if you can see my screen on both Yardstick and StreamYard rather, both StreamYard and YouTube right now? So if I can continue.
Yes, yes, your
Okay,
screen is up.
okay, on both platforms, right? Okay, awesome, cool.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I'll just start by introducing you to Microsoft Fabrics. If you've been using Microsoft Power BI for some time, this was actually a no-brainer because with the release Microsoft have been releasing for the past 2 years now, it was actually they're already showing signs of it actually from the introduction of things like data mats. That was like 2 3 years ago. Data flow. which gives you a GUI interface for data transformation on cloud. They also introduced things like deployment pipeline. So that gives you the OCI/CD interface when you have like your test, your development, your test, and your production. So all those release was actually driving into somewhere, right? And I was also fortunate enough to also knew that oh, they were actually releasing something like Fabrics before it even came out and stuff like that. But all these release were Microsoft were building something, right? They were building something. So it was all step by step by step. So it's just like you're building a mansion, right? You have to do the foundations and the rest. So those were the things they were building everything step by step until they got to like the peak and they delivered something amazing, and which it has been very very awesome. And also, I would advise everyone that you should take Fabric seriously because right now, because I'm also in the consulting firm, right? I'm seeing a lot of companies now tilt towards fabrics. Like a lot of them are really, really tilting towards fabrics in the sense that it gives you this whole self-service solution. Self-service in the sense that you don't really need a very complex person like me now to start come to configure things or provision infrastructures and stuff like that. It's just more like an accountant can just go there, not really an accountant, but someone can just easily go there like an HR and just build a whole he or she warehouse, lake house, and stuff like that. So it gives you this self-service solution, meaning that you don't really need to be all that technically extremely good, right? To like use it and utilize the solution. And it makes it like very, very easy. So the content for today, right, will be broken down into basically six area, right? I'll be talking more about introduction to fabrics, Microsoft Fabric's capability, the one lake overview, exam preparation, practice questions. So we'll do a little bit of practice questions and also Q&A section, right? So let's just do an overview of Microsoft Fabric. Sorry, I know my other screen is here, so I'm actually facing here. So sorry about that if you guys are seeing my side face and everything. Okay, so introduction of Microsoft Fabrics. Everyone already uses Fabric, so I'll just give you like a brief introduction. So recently they just added Synapse. I'm sorry, Databricks into here, right? But before it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, just the seven, right? Recently, Databricks has been added because what Microsoft is trying to push is Synapse. Fabrics is just a what's the name now? Is a analytical engineering tool, not a full blown data engineering solution, right? So and one beautiful thing about Fabrics is it's a SaaS application, meaning it's a software as a service, meaning it's not like a PaaS application, which is a platform as a service, which is usually in Azure, where you need to provision, you need to configure and everything. But SaaS application, it is being managed by Microsoft themselves. And why some people might ask, okay, what's the difference between SaaS, PaaS, and infrastructure as a service? So when you say a SaaS application, we talk about things like Excel Online. We talk about things like Outlook. You use Outlook, right? But it's not managed by you. It's actually managed by Microsoft. So the same thing too with Fabrics, right? Fabrics is actually being managed by Microsoft, but you use it, right? You set some securities and some administrative rights and everything. So Fabrics is actually a unified SaaS-based solution that brings together all organization data, multi-cloud, and analytic and AI application, right? So it is made up of these components, majorly this component, which is data integration. So for data integration, that's Data Factory. Data Factory is actually a Azure platform as a service, but it's also incorporated and integrated into Fabrics, right? So for some of you that are for some of you that you've been using, you are like you call yourself an MSBI developer. MSBI stands for um, Microsoft Business Developer, where you use things like SSIS, SSRS, and SSAS, and also SSMS, right? You should be very, very conversant with Data Factory because SSIS is almost, if you are very, very comfortable with SSIS, that's SQL Server Integration system, right? You should be very, very comfortable using Data Factory because it's almost the same thing, right? So that's why most people that move from on-premise SSIS and they go to cloud, they're very, very comfortable using Fabrics because it's almost the same process. You get. So we have integration, which we most time we do the copy activity with this, that I do incremental copy, setting parameters and the rest, either setting parameters, variables and triggers and the rest. We also have a data engineering, which is Synapse. So for the data engineering, you can have things like your notebook, right? So Synapse notebook. And you have your data warehouse, which is also in Synapse, right? So the thing about Fabrics, and the beautiful thing about Fabrics is that it brought in all the complexity of Synapse into Microsoft Fabrics. That's and the advantage is if you are very comfortable using Microsoft 365's environment, you should be comfortable with Fabrics. It's not as that like you're in Azure and you're seeing different components that you don't really understand, right? Also, you have the things like data science. So these are like the major components. You have things like real-time analytics, where you use things like stream analytics and you write things like KSQL. You have your business application. That's for people that already use Power BI. And one advantage is that for the Power BI aspect, you have things like your data mart, right? So if I know data mart came out like 2 years, 3 years back, and if you're very comfortable with data mart, where you can create your dashboard, do things like your row level security and the rest, right? You should be very comfortable around this place. And also if you are very good with Power BI, so you should be comfortable with this. Applied observation. This is more like data activator, and also they made everybody loved data engineering tool, which is Databricks, right? Also, Databricks also is a unified platform, same way as Fabrics, and everything is actually built on top of one lake. We'll go deep into all of these components as time goes on, right? So the one lake is more like the foundational data infrastructure, right? It goes with the whole concept of the lake house architecture, which I'll still explain for us and give us a little bit of background of how it works and everything. I also have the data governance, which is Purview, which I still mistake it with Azure Purview, but now we just call it Purview, right? Purview for data governance and security. So I'll go further. So let me just discuss more about the component, right? And before I go further, I'll just say experience are designed to target specific personnel and tasks yet work together seamlessly in a unified platform via one lake to enable collaboration. So these are the major components of Fabrics and how it entails, right? So we have the data engineering aspect, which is used to store big data in Lakehouse for querying, reporting, and sharing. Also have data warehousing, which is more like a centralized data location repository rather, where all data are being stored. So for data warehouse, right? If you're conversant with Synapse, right? They call it before it was called Azure Data Warehouse, right? Before they later incorporated it into Synapse. Before it was a separate platform as a service on its own before, but now it has been incorporated into Synapse, and now it's also into Fabrics. So we have things like what we call warehouse. So for warehouse, right, when you are building a warehouse, it's either you are doing a SQL dedicated pool, or so for Synapse, it has what we call SQL dedicated pool, external table, and lakehouse. But for warehouse specifically, we call it SQL dedicated pool, which has a very high computing power, but very expensive, very, very expensive. So very expensive. So when you use it, just turn it off. But if you are, but I know most financial institutions, they leave it on. You guys have like um, abundant wealth and everything. But very expensive though. So we have data warehouse. That's for storing relational data for querying, reporting, and sharing of reports. Data science for machine learning algorithm. I remember when Fabrics came out. I knew Francis did something very, very amazing and interesting back then, where he did a full data Fabric solution, where he did reports. He did so many things. Like he also built reports. He did machine learning algorithm. Did some prediction, which was very nice. And he also uploaded it on his GitHub repo. I actually checked it out, and I was very, very amazed. Like, wow, this is all what Fabrics could do, right? Also, you have things like real-time analytics, where you capture real-time data. So in the equivalent of this in Azure is when you're using things like Azure IoT Hub, or you're using things like Event Hub, and you now use it with Stream Analytics, and you now push it either to Cosmos DB or push to any database you want to use, right? So it also has things like that, which is real-time analytics for capturing rapid data and also loading it real-time. And data factory, right? And one thing everyone should know is that the most robust ETL tool right now in the market is actually data factory. When you do comparison with other tools like GCP, data flow, or you do things with AWS, Glue, Azure Data Factory is actually the most robust because it has so much functionality. It's if you really go deep into it, right, it has a lot of functionality. So it's actually one of the most robust, and it's also inside of Fabrics. And also, I said if you have a background in SSIS, this should be very easy for you. Also, the most used visualization tool in the world, Power BI, that for creating report, dashboard, and the rest. So you most times people tend to mistake reports and dashboard. Mind you, reports are usually created on your Power BI desktop, while dashboard are created on Power BI services, right? Which is now Fabrics, right? So you create your dashboard on Power BI services, but your reports are created on Power BI desktop. And the major difference between a report and a dashboard is just a more like a combination of multiple reports just to streamline all the information, right? You can have multiple reports, but you just want to pick the most important key metrics that you can show to your management. So that's why you have dashboards, right? So that like you call them more like a summary of multiple reports, and they're usually built on Power BI services, right? That's Fabrics now. I have your data activator, which is a no code tool that allows you to automate action based on real time changes. So it's when you're having sensors, event trigger, like more like an event based trigger, right? So these are some of the bigger picture, right? The bigger picture of Fabrics. Fabrics is getting bigger, right? It's Microsoft are really, really, really investing in it right now. Like the amount of investments that goes into it on a daily basis is like really, really mind blowing. And every day, every month, new features keep coming out, and so it's like you have to keep following the trend, right? So this is just more like the Fabric compute engine, how it works and everything, right? You have some that works with Spark, you have some that work with TSQL. So if you're very conversant with SSMS, that's Microsoft SQL Management Studio or Service, right? Um, SQL Server Management Studio or Service. I forgot the last S. So it works with TSQL. You have the serverless compute, right? We have the KSQL. KSQL works more with real time streaming. So it's like SQL, but it's more like a different kind of query. We have the Power BI for analysis and everything, and also the mirroring is also available, right? So we have mirroring, which is also one of the new features that came out. So for mirroring in Fabric is basically it's a feature that allows users to access and manage data from any database, right, or warehouse within a Fabric's warehousing without having to move. So you don't have to move your data or copy your data. So your data can be somewhere else. You are just mirroring it inside of Fabric's environment itself. So you can use those data. You can, sorry, someone say something. Hello. Okay, I'll just continue. So if you can hear me, just say yes. I can. I'm sharing my screen on both ends. So if you can hear me, just say yes. Okay, awesome, awesome. Okay, awesome. Okay, and if I'm too fast, let me know. I'm actually under the weather, kind of. Okay, so 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 can you mute yourself? Okay, so that's the whole concept of mirroring, right? It's these are some of the questions that you come. So what I tried doing was I tried doing a PowerPoint presentation in such a way that okay, you might see some. I'll give you guys this PowerPoint slide after I'm done and everything, right? You might see some questions that might be a little bit close to what you might get in the exam, right? So for mirroring, right, it's I've explained, right? It's you don't really need to now start moving. Just imagine like okay I'm um I'm working for a bank now, right? So let me say I'm working for one of the big commercial banks, and lately all the banks right now are actually trying to migrate now from on-premise to cloud, but they don't migrate our core banking application because of the old CBN policies and the rest, right? But some of the non-banking apps are being migrated to cloud and some other things, but Central Bank are right now really migrating a lot. So one thing now, let me just give an instance. Let me say I'm using one of the very popular banks in Nigeria, right? Bank XYZ. I won't mention any name because of confidentiality and everything. So I'm using Bank XYZ, for instance, right? It's one of the biggest banks in Nigeria, right? And that data right now is on it's it's that most of the data is on MongoDB, for instance, right? And they want us to they want to like move all the data, or they want to use Fabrics to now start analyzing those data and everything, right? I don't need to now start doing like a full migration of all the entire data. Imagine that that's the core application or that core application data. I'm trying to migrate all those no SQL data from Mongo now to Fabric's environment. We're considering things like latency, we're considering things like system downtime and everything, right? So what I can just easily do, I can just easily mirror those data inside of Fabric's warehouse or lake house and use those data and also build reports, build dashboards and everything for me. So those are some of the advantage of mirroring in Fabrics. So this is the foundational architecture of Fabrics. It's called One Lake. One lake. Um, just look at one lake as OneDrive or your Google Drive, right? You have Google Drive where you put all kinds of files. You put either structural files, unstructured, no structure. You put JSON files, you put Excel files, you put pictures, right? You put music. That's how one lake is, right? It's still the same thing. Let me just do something, right? And I'll show you how it works, right? So I'm using a dark background right now, right? So there's something called the lake house architecture, right? So let me just do like a lake. So I have a lake here, right? So how you guys can see I'm using a dark background right now, right? So we'll call this a lake house, right? So we'll call this a lake house, right? So the thing about lake house is that it gives you the best of both worlds, right? It gives you the best of both worlds. In what sense? It gives you the best of both a data lake and a data data warehouse, right? Warehouse, right? So lake house gives you the best of both worlds. So just look at a lake house as the best of both worlds. And the guys that actually did the research paper of Lakers, those are the guys that created Databricks, right? The founders of Databricks, that the founders of Spark and everything. They're the guys that actually did the whole. They have a research paper. If you go online and search for the Lake House architecture, right, you can read a book on it and how it works and everything. They are like the fundament. That's why Databricks has like been running very fast with the whole data engineering because they've perfected the whole concept of lake house architecture before anyone came into play, right? So we have the lake house architecture, which comprises of two kinds of data store, which houses a data lake and a data warehouse together, right? So the one of the advantage of lake house is that it is faster and it is lighter. Why is it lighter? It is lighter because the data used is called a delta lake, and a delta are usually made up of packet files. So they call it a delta lake, which are usually made up of packet files. Packet files, right? So packet files are just basically columnar data, columnar col- mm, columnar data, or you can call them compressed. They're usually called compressed files, right? I'm trying to explain all this. I want to let you guys know how the architecture works on the ground. Yeah, it's not about just the using the front end interface, right? You have to know how it works on the ground so you can know, okay, should I go for a CSV format or should I go for a packet format or should I go for an Avro format, right? Avro is still CSV but with timestamps in it, right? So those are the things you have to consider, right? Um, so one of the things, right, when you say CSV, CSV stands for comma separated value, right? Those are CSV files, which are usually in row base. You know, data enter row wise, right? If you have a table, when you're inserting data in a SQL relational table, right, enter row wise. But for Parquet, right, they are columnar based data, which the data enter column wise, right? And they're usually compressed, right? So I'm trying to explain the whole concept of a lake house architecture. So imagine this is a lake, right? And these are files in here, right? These are files in here. I'm just drawing some. I hope you guys can see my dark background. I was using like I have a very bad drawing this thing, right? So I have a lake here.
Yes, we can
Okay,
see.
okay, awesome, right? So I have a lake here, right, where I store files like Excel files or in Parquet files or in Delta format, right? All these files are usually stored in this place, right? So now, what does the lake house architecture now does for us is that it gives us this kind of mirage of data. Like, okay, I have a file here, an Excel file here, right, or a CSV file which I've converted to Parquet, right? But in the front end, what I'm seeing a table. I'm seeing a table here now. They call it the modern lakehouse architecture, right? So that's what people are going for right now. A lot of companies are now, I have a lot of friends that are going to companies and telling them that they should move from warehouse to lakehouse and using the modern data architecture and everything, right? And that's one thing that One Lake is actually built upon, right? The modern data architecture and everything. So, so just 1 minute. So just draw my line. So this is like my table. This is my table. Um, this is my table, right? So if for all those SQL guys, if you don't do your normal select from the table name, right? Right. So what's actually happening now is that from the lakehouse architecture is actually a file, right? But because you are using because you might say that lakehouse gives you the best of both worlds. It gives you the best of both a data warehouse and a data lake, meaning that the files are being stored in a packet format in the data lake. But for the data guys, or for the data engineer, or for the data analyst, right, they are interacting with the files as a tabular file, right? That's why if you see most core, if you see all those core, all these what I mean core guys, I mean like guys that have been doing database architecture or database design for like from the 80s, 90s. They don't like the lakehouse architecture. They say no, 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 no. They rather go for a normal data warehouse, right? But for the modern guys, right, like the Francis and Co, they want to go for the lakehouse architecture because that is where the future is going to. And one of the advantages of lakehouse architecture is that it is lesser because at the back end, they are delta format, meaning they are compressed as packet files, right? Packet files. I might be saying packet. It comes out a lot. So packets are more like columnar data and they are compressed. Columnar data and they are compressed, right? And so when you have a lakehouse is two things: data lake at the baseline and a table, more like a warehouse at the front end. So you are interacting with the table, but at the back end is a data lake, right? So that's why we have things like Unity Catalog, but those one are under the Databricks infrastructure. So that is all the concept of lake house. So let me just continue. Let me now go back to my one lake. So the same thing to so one lake is also the same thing as a lake house, right? But it's called one lake in Fabrics. You can call it Unity Catalog in Databricks. You can call it Lakehouse in Snowflakes and some other and also Google Query also has um the Lakehouse architecture and everything. So when you say one lake, it says it's a single unified SaaS data lake that comes automatically provisioned with query tenant without adding any additional infrastructure to manage. That's one plus, right? So if you are configuring for other tools, you have to really, really configure, right? So that's one advantage of um, Fabrics. Remember, I said Fabrics is more like a self-service application, meaning it's a SaaS application, meaning you don't need to do much configuration. Unlike if it was a platform as a service. So that's one advantage I will give Fabrics any day, anytime, right? That it has over Azure Synapse or it has over any other platform service, right? It's a SaaS application, meaning it's more like a drag and drop kind of thing. So you can easily just go to create, you can easily just from your workspace, you can create your data warehouse or you create your data lake and you just say get data from a data flow and boom, you've gotten your lake house. Either pick a lake house or pick a data lake. So things like that, right? So it's a single unified platform where it stores everything. And some of the advantages that simplicity of purchasing, single source of truth, meaning you have a single source of truth, meaning that it's not data silos, meaning your data are not scattered everywhere, right? Your data is just in one single place, right? Maximum data investment is open access and also simplified and secure. So one of the things that apart from um when people say Azure, I'm using Azure a lot because Azure and Fabrics they go hand in hand. I'll be honest with you, they really really go hand in hand. I won't say that they don't go hand in hand, right? So for the security aspect, the same level of security you have in Azure, that's the same level of security you have. Now you have things like Active Directory, but now it is no longer Active Directory, it's now called Entra ID, right? So you have your Entra ID, which you can also use to like access it. You can also do things like Key Vault, right? To access and some other things, right? So the same level of security you have over there, same level of security you also have here. So one lake for all data, right? So it's I remember I said it. One lake is just like your one drive for all your data, right? So all your data is just basically stored in your one lake. You can have your customer data, your finance data. You can see the format here is called a packet. That's Delta packet format. Remember, packets are columnar data, meaning that data that's stored in column base and are usually compressed, right? So your serverless compute and everything. I also said it. All the data engine are stored. Sorry. All the compute engine stores that data automatically in one lake. Data are stored in a single column format. They're usually sorry, they're usually Parquet. That's an open standard format for all tabular data for analytic. That's VNX. Um, that VNX is one of the terms used in Microsoft and everything. Um, Once data is stored in the lake, it is directly accessible by all the engines without needing to import or. So those are some of the thing, and it also shares the same universal security. That's the entire universal security with normal Microsoft M365 securities. That if you are, there's two types of administrators you have in like in cloud in for Microsoft, right? You know, you have your Power BI administrator, but that you have your Fabrics administrator, but there's like two main administrators. You can either be a Microsoft 365 administrator, that's M365 administrator, where you control all Microsoft 365 packages, which Fabrics falls under, right? Sorry, which Fabrics falls under, right? So I'm actually having a little bit of cold. Which Fabrics falls under? Which other one now? Which all Microsoft Power Platform Services, Power House, Power Automate, Power Virtual Agents, that which is now called Copilot Studio. All of them falls under Power Pages and the rest. And you can have your Azure administrator where all the Synapse, networking, virtual networking, load balances, VMs, and everything, all of them falls under the Synapse, right? So those are the two main. Then you can now have other sub administrators where you have Fabrics administrator, but you know that it's a level of hierarchy. So the Microsoft 365 administrator has level hierarchy more than the person, right? So if I go for that, right? So one of the power of Fabrics is that you can connect to everything, basically everything, right? Connect to Databricks, connect to Azure AI Studio. So if you're, and you know now that we have Open AI now inside of Azure, where you can now easily write, build your large language models, build RAG models, and the rest with Azure, and also incorporate it. Okay, that's some very very nice projects, sure, but you can work with that, but I'm not go too much into all those, but we're not really doing neural network right now. So mirroring and some other things you can work with. Like remember, I've already explained the concept of mirroring where you just mirror the data into Fabrics, right? So this is just like the big picture of how Fabrics works, right? The big picture of the entire overview and everything, right? Get data from different cloud stores such as GCP Cloud Store, Amazon S3 buckets, um, the storage for Azure. Azure has two storage. You have the blob storage, which stands for binary large object, and also have the data lake gen 2, which is a combination of both data lake gen 1 and blob storage, and some other things. I don't know. I think I might just skip this part. Okay, this talks about the sharing. Okay, yeah. This one comes out a lot. Shortcut, right? Shortcut. Okay, so some of the other things about Fabrics is also data sharing. So sharing data in one lake is as easy as sharing files in OneDrive, removing the need for data duplication, right? So with shortcuts, data throughout one lake can be composed together without any data movement. And okay, one of the things about shortcut is that shortcut allows instant linking of data already existing in Azure. So shortcut it basically does what it allows instant linking of data already existing in Azure. Like your data is already existing in Azure or any other cloud storage without the need of duplicating or moving the data. That's making one lake the first multi-cloud data lake, right? So just create a shortcut. You have shortcut to other data, right? I remember this question comes out, right? With support of industrial standard API, one lake data can be directly accessed by any application or services. Okay, so now let's now talk about how you now get data into Power BI or any visualization tool, right? So there are basically three ways, right? So if you've done Power BI exam, that's the PL 100, right? I hope I got the code correctly, PL 100 or something, right? That made I say, is it correct? PL 100. Okay, I can hear you. Okay, well it's 300. Okay, cool. Um, so they are basically okay. So they're basically for fabrics, right? We have three modes of importing data inside, right? We have the direct query mode, which is slow but real time. So this one is more like the data. If you have written Power BI, you should know about direct query and you should know about the import mode, right? So direct query basically means you are connected to the data source directly. But in other in Power BI, you have like in the left hand, you have three major pane. You have your report or your design pane, you have your data pane, and you also have your modeling pane. So most times it doesn't show in your data pane, right? So you just have like you have it in the report itself and everything. That's direct query. So meaning that if there's any change in the data source itself, it automatically changes in the Power BI. So it's where you do your data visualization and everything. It's slow but real time. Well, actually, I thought it was faster, right? So you have your import. I think I'm trying to push more for the data direct link. That's why they made it. Okay, it's fine. Okay, so you have your import mode. Import mode basically means you are downloading the entire data into your Power BI, right? So it has latency, but you are basically duplicating, but it's fast. You do your reporting and everything. That's why you can start doing things like you can start creating extra columns using your DAX. You can start creating extra columns using your DAX. Measure, add columns. You can do things like creating new tables and everything faster, easy. I mean, and the one that Microsoft are pushing for, that's if you don't connect to your one lake, is your direct lake mode, right? So your direct lake mode is like the fastest, is the best, is the recommended, is what is actually recommended by Microsoft, right? So what it does basically is the direct lake mode in Fabrics is a feature that eliminates the need to import your data into Power BI. Instead, right, it loads your data directly into one lake, which is a unified data lake for Fabric's workload. This mode is designed to provide a faster querying performance and reduce the need of data coupling or movement, right? So these are the things you have to like take into consideration, right? So it comes out also. So I just try to like do the PowerPoint presentation in such a way that okay, most of the questions that do comes out, I just put it in and just makes it easier. So direct query mode is like the best mode for importing your data and everything. So we will go further. So now, remember I said something about Fabrics being why Microsoft is really pushing Fabrics for more is that it's becoming more like a SaaS application and it's more like it's under the Microsoft 365 licensing environment. It has a different license. Don't get me wrong, it has a different license, right? Because it works with it's more of a capacity base, unlike Azure that is more like pay as you go. Synapses and Fabrics is more like capacity based, right? Capacity based, so the more capacity you pull in. But one of the beautiful things is that it allows for more collaboration with other Microsoft 365 resources, right? So now when you, like now for me, I can be like a Fabrics developer, quote unquote, or a Fabrics analytical engineer in my organization, right? I can have another person that is a purely Power Platform developer, right? So for that Power Platform developer, what the person does is it does the five core Power Platform to which is Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate, Power Virtual Agent, which is now called Copilot Studio, right? It also does Power Pages, right? I don't know if they've released any new ones so far, but I know those are the ones that is off mine. Microsoft keeps releasing things very fast, so um, if they release anyone, I'll definitely know. But Copilot Studio. So Copilot Studio is now the new name. It's no longer called Power Virtual Agent. So most times, if you're looking for Power Virtual Agent, just look for Copilot Studio. It's actually very nice, very very nice, and it actually has this whole AI embedded into it, like really really embedded into it. And I just saw an update yesterday now that you can actually pick data now from Fabrics Lakehouse now, which is coming very soon from Copilot Studio. So now if you have my, so now I can just it's like you're building a RAG model, right? Where you do, I'm trying not to go into AI that much, but it's like you're building a RAG model now where you can now, okay, you can now base your Copilot Studio memory based on the data in your lake house from the fabrics itself, right? So those are some of the interesting things that is coming out, and it's actually Microsoft is really, really doing like lots. If it's about that aspect, I'll give that to them. Also, it also has its easy integration with Dynamics 365, right? So if you're either from the ERP section, you're for the CRM section, or you're very comfortable using things like SAP or stuff like that, right? So you have it has easy integration with Dynamics 365. Also, it's easy integration with Microsoft 365, that is your Copilot, PowerPoint, Excel, Outlook, Teams, right? And also for the Azure resources, Databricks, HD Insights, Azure AI services, which is now called when I say Azure AI service, you have things like um under the Azure AI service, you have things like cognitive search, right? Cognitive search, which allows for indexing and embedding and all those other things. So you have cognitive search. So for cognitive search, it's not like called cognitive. Okay, one thing about Microsoft that I like and I don't like is that they keep changing it. So if you already used the old name and now I said cognitive search, it's actually called AI search now. They've changed to AI search. So things like AI search, right? So under the open AI services, you have things like AI search. You have things like that's where this thing comes to play now. Open AI is under there. Open AI search, Azure chatbots, and some other things. I also have the AI Studio where you can build models with AI Studio by writing code. It's more like you're building RAG models. And you also have like the Azure ML. So as for Azure ML, that's where you're building like your normal machine learning algorithm where you're doing things like sklearn, you're doing things like KNN, K neural nearest neighbors, SKL, SVM, support vector machines, and the rest, right? So you are building things like that under there. So those are the things, and also third parties application like Oracle DB, so Oracle database, that's for cloud. I don't know for the on-premise Oracle. The thing is that the on-premise Oracle is kind of very, very complex to connect with, right? You have to have like an instance inside of your environment. But I don't know if the enterprise data gateway solves for that. That's the enterprise data gateway that creates a connection between an on-premise source and a cloud-based source, right? So I've not tried for Oracle on-premise, but I know for cloud it's easier, right? That's Oracle Cloud. You have for Salesforce. Salesforce is the biggest likewise the biggest ERP solution, ERP CRM solution. Then we have SAP. SAP is also one of the biggest ERP solution, right? It's used SAP is used more in engineering sector, especially in the oil and gas, right? There's a lot of SAP in terms of infrastructure management and the rest. When they're managing the infrastructure, they're managing the asset. Asset are things like turbines and plants. When you have when you mean I can't just talk about, but when you mean asset are like things like turbines. And just one asset, you're talking about billions of, not naira now, but dollars, right? Dollar aspect, right? Because those are turbines. If anything happens, like Nigeria is going to go. But those are mostly in the Niger deltas, though, like Bonny Island and the rest. We go to Bonny Island. So we have Salesforce, you have Oracle, Slack. Slack is actually one of the most popular communication sites apart from Teams. Most companies use Slack for that means of communication. So you can actually integrate those with Slack, right? But I know I do use Power Automate a lot with Slack and some other third party tools, right? So so let me introduce you to data activator, right? So this is also one of the tools, right, um in Fabrics, which makes it easier to use, right? So it's a tool in Fabrics that automates monitoring and takes action when certain condition or patterns emerges under a underlying data stream. It is designed to help organization basically to respond quickly to changes, data pattern and condition without requiring extensive coding or IT support. So how does this data activator works? Let's look at this as an event, right? There's something called an event-based trigger or an event-based driven solution, right? Or the concept is called microservices, right? Why I say microservices are just basically you're breaking down a monolithic architecture, you're breaking it down into multiple section or multiple fragments, right? So for activator is almost the same thing, right? So let me just give you a concept of microservices. Microservices is you have one thing that just do one thing that is doing it very, very well, right? It's just like when you're writing a code, you're writing Python code or C Sharp or .NET or Java, anything. They call it functions. You're doing a function. A function does just one thing, right? So you can always reuse your function. You can always call back your function. So the same thing too with data activator, or it does one thing, right? It's an event. It's you can set some parameter. You can I'll show you. I'll tell you how it works in Power BI, so you have an idea of how it works, and I'll also tell you how it works here. Okay, so look at this now. I I've built a report, right, in Power BI services. I've published it. Sorry, I built a report in Power BI desktop, right? I've published that same report to Power BI services, right? Or fabrics. I'm still calling it fabric. Anyone shall Power BI services, fabrics, the same thing. So I published that report to Power BI services, right? So now I want that report now, right? I want to set an alert, right? I know in Power BI report you can only set alert in some particular visualizations like um, card, right? Like gauge, and maybe one other one. It's not all the report that allows for alert, right? They call it manage alert, where you pick a report, you right click, you now say manage alert, you now set the alert, right? So now let me give an instance. I'm working for a sales organization, for instance, right? And my target has been given to me that my target is 100 million naira, right? And 100 million naira. So now I have a report that is on Power BI. So now the data analysts, the data engineers, the all of them have built an entire database pipeline system, right? That picks data from multiple sources, incrementally push it to a storage unit. Then from that storage unit, the data is now a report is now built from it. From that report, it does a daily schedule. That's data set when you do your schedule on a daily basis, right? So you do your schedule every day, like maybe every 24 hours. I know for If you're using a pro license, you have like 8 schedule a day. If you're using a premium power user, I think you have like 64 refresh a day or so. So most times, if you're using a pro license, you have like 4 refresh a day. So most times you can just divide it by 24. So you can have like maybe you can do like different section where you have your refresh. But sometimes most people they prefer doing okay, they do that refresh twice a day, in the midnight and first in the morning, right? So like when the salespeople go, they say, oh, this is where we are, this is our target and XYZ, right? So what we now do now is the report is now growing, right? People are pushing data. The data engineer has built his pipeline, is pushing data to the warehouse. Remember, the Power BI report is now built based on poured out data, right? The report is built based on poured out data, right? And remember that Power BI report, I've also set a refresh on the data set, which is now called semantic model, right? I still they keep changing name now. So it's called semantic model. So if I was saying data set, please let me just show you what I'm talking about, right? I have Power BI desktop here on premise, right? Desktop, right? You call it on premise, right? In this my Power BI desktop, I've pushed it, right? I'm pushing it to cloud, right? I'm pushing it to cloud. So this was Power BI services, or if you're more comfortable, you can say fabrics, right? Fabrics. So when you push, right? When you're pushing to cloud, it's called publish, right? The term you use is called publish. You call it publish, right? The time we use most time is called we use publish. You're publishing it to the cloud, right? So when you're publishing to the cloud, you're moving two things basically. You're moving two things. You're moving two things. You're moving what? You're moving the data set. You're moving the data set or semantic model, which is now called semantic model, right? So actually, the name was meant to be semantic model. That was like the standard. That was actually the best name to have given it. So I think Microsoft listened to um people when they requested for it, right? To change to semantic model. So the data set, and you're also pushing reports, right? So you also have reports, right? I remember I said something the other time. I said that you don't build dashboard in Power BI desktop. You build dashboard in Power BI cloud, right? That's where you build all your dashboards. So they're usually built on Power BI cloud, right? So you have pushed these two things now, dashboard and semantic model, which is now called data set, right? Which is called data set, but now called semantic model rather. So I've pushed these two to Power BI services. Now, at the back end or something, right? So let me assume that this Power BI, the data set it was using was from let's say it was from a one lake lake house, for instance, right? So that one lake house, the data engineers have built the pipeline data engineers, they've built their pipelines, right? They've built their pipelines that does everything. Pipelines that does everything. They can either use incremental. Well, anyone how they want to do. Maybe they are using data flow for incremental. They're using um lookup activities, or they're using last date modify with some other activities. So they can either use there are multiple ways of doing incremental listing load, right? So they've done this and start moving the data incrementally, but they're doing based on partitioning. So they have like different hierarchy. So they're doing more like incremental movement or incremental load. So this says actually going to be more practical, sorry, rather theoretical because I'm preparing you guys for exams. So so you're moving the data based on the. So now the Power BI desktop, right, is taking the data from one lake, right? That's direct lake, right? And the data is more like a lake house. So the data engineers have built the pipeline. The data is just going there incrementally and everything, right? So they built the report and everything. But the next thing now is after you've done this, right? So if I still bring it down here, but actually I'm going to even use one lake because it's actually directly connected. Let me say it's being brought from another source. Let me use this thing. Let me use a SQL database. Because if I use one lake, it's actually directly connected to SQL server, SQL database on premise, right? On premise. Sorry. If I use one link, it's actually directly connected to this, so I don't think I need to go through those routes. It's not so the data is gotten from SQL rather. So forget about the one link, right? The data is gotten from SQL server, right? And I built my report around it. I've also pushed it now to Power BI services. I remember for me to be able to connect to it, I have to connect Power BI services also to. So I have to connect Power BI services to SQL Server, right? I'll use what we call a gateway, right? I'll use what we call a gateway. I remember in Power BI we have two types of gateway. Remember, we have the standard gateway, the standard gateway, and so the standard gateway is called you can call it an enterprise data. Sorry, you can call it an enterprise data gateway, right? So when you say an enterprise data gateway, it supports not just only Power BI, it supports Power BI, it supports Power Apps, it supports Azure, right? You can also connect it to Azure, like you're using your Logic app. You can also use Logic app with enterprise data gateway. What you also need to do is to get the exact region which your data is being hosted. What I mean by getting the exact region, if I'm building something with Power BI, like my Microsoft Office 365, right? If I build something by Microsoft Office 365, there's a region where all my data set is hosted, my organization is hosted. What I need to do now is, if I'm configuring my enterprise data gateway, there's a part you see that, okay, select your region or change region. So for that one, right, you might have to reach out to the Microsoft 365 administrator, right? It's very, very easy to get. You just reach out to Microsoft 365 administrator. They'll tell you where the region is being hosted in, right? So most times we tend to use UK region in Africa because it's kind of a little bit cheaper, or like using South Africa, because South Africa might be closer to us, but it's more expensive, right? So when you're either using your standard or enterprise data gateway, right, or you're using your Power BI gateway, Power BI gateway. So the Power BI gateway is just for only Power BI, while the enterprise gateway supports both Azure and other Power Platform services like Power Apps and the rest, right? So most times it's preferable to use an enterprise data gateway. I know that Francis has a video on that. When I saw he did one video like that, which was very, very amazing. So you can use the enterprise data gateway for that, right? So cool. So as I was saying, imagine that I built a report, right? Please ignore this one here, please. Just ignore this part here, please. It's not gotten from a lakehouse, right? So now for the pipelines, now the data engineer is using an SSIS tool now. So he's using an SSIS tool. It's not using a any cloud-based. He's using an SSIS or using tenant talent, or he's using you can be using there are so many tools. You can either be using Aperture Airbyte, or you're just doing it pure Python code using Spark or SQL Alchemy. But the data engineer is using a tool to incrementally load the data now into SQL Server, right? SQL Server database on premise, right? So now I built my report based on the data in my SQL Server, right? So the data is built based on this, right? Then I publish the report to Power BI services, right? Remember, I'm publishing two things to Power BI services. I'm publishing both the semantic model and the report itself, right? So now in this report, I have to create what we call a refresh, right? Refresh, because remember, the data engineers will keep updating, they will keep pushing data to the SQL database, right? And it has to also be reflecting, right, in the report. That's the dashboard itself, right? Because if I was in the Power BI desktop, I'll just come to my Power Query, my Power BI, I'll go to home or M2, I'll just click on refresh data. It will refresh the visualization and to update the data. If new data are being pushed here, it will update it over here. But now, because this thing now, the data now is also on cloud. Because it's on cloud, you can do collaboration, you can share your report from your workspace, right? I didn't talk about workspace. How I talk about workspace, but mm, so I missed out workspace. Okay, that's fine. So the data now, right? It's on. I need to create a refresh, right? That'll be updating the visualization based on the data the data engineers are pushing into the SQL database, right? The data engineers will be putting data into the SQL database. They'll be creating multiple packages in SSIS, and they'll be doing things like they'll be creating multiple packages, either doing things like CDC, which stands for change data caption, or they're doing things like SCD, which stands for slowly changing dimension, right? That question also came out also, right? It comes out a lot. Why we have multiple types of slowly changing dimension, like type 0, type 1, type 2, type 3, up to type 7 actually. But the ones we commonly use are between 1 and 2, basically. 1 and 2. right? So so for this refresh, I'll set a refresh here on the data set, that it will be refreshing the data set on a daily basis. Remember, right? If you're using a pro license, you have 8 refresh per day. If you're using a premium per user or premium per enterprise or premium different ones, instead now there's even the embedded okay, embedded analytics is a little bit more advanced where you start writing things like JavaScript and Java into this thing. So that was a little bit more, that's another aspect of being a Power BI developer when you start doing embedded analytics. That's a little bit of I know I've done it once for a client, but that's not part of. I don't think it's coming out in the exam itself, right? So now for the refresh aspect itself, right? I need to refresh, right? But I'm refreshing the semantic model as I'm refreshing the data set. Where is the data set connected to? The data set is connected to on-premise, which is what? On my server here. So what I have to do, I have to create a link that links my what? My Power BI services to my data set. And that link is called what? Enterprise Data Gateway, right? In Azure, we use what we call integration runtime, which is faster, but Enterprise Data Gateway is slower but more secured, right? So we are trying. So if we're in Azure, we tend to use more of um, um, integration runtime. Sorry, integration runtime because it's faster to use. It saves us times and everything, right? Um, so that's this part here, right? But sorry, I skipped the part. I think this one also comes out, right? So now before I can do anything on Power BI service, I have to create what we call a workspace. Workspace, right? So workspace is just more like a container that houses all your Power BI services, all your Fabrics resources. Workspace is a container, right, that houses all your Power BI services or resources. What does Workspace? What are the resources it houses? Workspace houses your data set, which is now called semantic model. It houses your reports. It houses your data set. It houses your data flow. It houses your data mart. It houses your data warehouse and data lake. So now, before you even do anything in Fabrics, you have to first create a workspace, right? And for Fabrics, there are two types. Sorry, yeah, for Fabrics or Power BI, there are two types of workspace. You have your um my workspace and we have workspaces, right? Workspaces, right? So for my workspace is your personal workspace. That's if I'm building a report, I'm building something, right? I'm doing like a prototype for myself. I don't want to share it with anybody in my organization, right? Actually, this class is more like I'm training you for both Power BI exam and also Fabrics exam. So it's like a way of both ways, actually. So now for my workspace, right? It's broken down into two places, right? You have like it's for your personal use. You're not collaborating with anyone, right? So for my workspace is for your personal use. You're not collaborating with anyone, right? So we also have workspaces. So workspaces, that's where you now collaborate, where you can now share your Power BI workspace. You can either give people viewing rights, administrative right, or just contributor right. The same way when you share document on Google Drive, right? You say, okay, editor right, or you say, oh, view only, or you say, oh, ownership right, or you show contributor right. The same thing too with workspace, right? You have a workspace access management where you can also select the kind of rights you want to share, right? So those are the things you need to set there, right? So you now set what's the name? Um so what even made me come here was because of data activator. I'm trying to cover a lot for you guys. So now for the refresh aspect, right? Your data refreshes. Remember, I was saying I'm in a marketing organization where we have given a target of 100 million, right? The, all the marketers, whenever they do their sales, maybe they have a system or an application that they push it by APIs or something, right? And the API also pushes, maybe they're using Kafka or they're using Talent or something, right? It pushes the data to a SQL database, maybe they're using SSIs or something or Talent or something, right? And the data analyst has built a report from this, pushed it to Power BI services, right? The data engineer, which is maybe on premise, because all the data engineering didn't start from cloud, didn't start from Azure, didn't start from AWS, didn't start from GCP. I just started from on premise. I started from guys using SSIS, guys using Python, or guys just writing bash scripts or something like that, or using task scheduler to just automate things, right? So this is how data engineering started before it even went. I'm still young too, I'm not that old, but whenever I talk to older colleagues and I say, oh, they don't really like all these fancy cloud tools. They rather go the old school ways using bash script to like orchestrate to create that process. They don't see they don't, or they're writing bash script. Like when you see bash script, you're like, wow, you're like, ah. So people like that, people still like that still exist, and there are actually a lot, and I've actually even paid more than people that even do the whole cloud stuffs because those are more fundamental knowledge and everything. Um, as I was saying, right, the reason why I even came to this aspect here is that if you look at this now, the data is refreshing on a daily basis, right? The data engineer is still pushing the data to the SQL database. I've already created my link using my gateway. Remember, gateway creates a secured connection between on-premise services and a cloud-based data source, right? It creates a link service for data being transferred and stuff like that. So that's created a secure link service, right? That's what the data gateway is. So now, and I've already set a refresh that refresh on a daily basis. Remember, I said that there are two licenses, there are multiple licenses, but I'm using Pro for instance. If you're using a Pro license, you have 8 refresh per day. 8 refresh per day. So now the next step for me now is to, if I look at this now, what am I going to do now is they've given us a target, right? The target is $100 million or 100 million naira anymore. But now everyone is pushing for dollars now. So let's say $100 million, right? I have an $100 million target, right? So I'll set a alert, right? I'll set an alert based on the threshold, right? So my threshold will be that okay, if the value of the total sales by the salespeople. I'm echoing right now. Who unmuted? Okay, cool. So if the total sales by the salespeople goes above a particular threshold, then the alert should trigger. That's what alert is. Alert is just when a certain thing happen, something should happen. If a certain condition is met, something to happen. For me, I did engineering in school, right? So when we're doing engineering, I did things like robotics, microcontrollers, when we're having sensors, where you have things like gas sensors, you have things like humidity sensor, you have to like ultrasonic sensor when you're building robots, self-driving cars and stuff like that, right? So when I was studying a lot of robotics in school and everything, just that robotics was more expensive. I had to run away. It was actually very expensive. That's why you see if you watch cartoons or movies, you see the guys that do the hardware that are very rich, like Tony Stark or Bruce Wayne, right? They are rich guys. So if you're doing anything hardware, you have to be very, very rich. So I remember back then when I was in school, if I build a solution, either using ARM microcontrollers or using PIC or using Arduino or stuff like that, right? After I've done one, I have to go and order from China again. And I just after I like 4 or 5 times, I stopped. Like, no, it's too expensive, too expensive. So I just switched to the software and data aspects. Okay, so that's the same thing, right? So for alert is just when a certain thing happen, when a certain threshold, a certain condition is met, something should happen, right? So that is what data activator does. When a certain condition is met, something should happen, right? It triggers something. You set a rule. I'm using Power BI for instance, right? The way you set it in Power BI is called alert, right? You set an alert on your visualization. Either an alert in Power BI works on only card, um, gauge, I think one other thing, well, I know it doesn't work on. I don't think it works on bar charts and all those other ones that have bar and stack column and stack bar chart and the rest. I don't think it works on that, right? So those are how data activator works. So I'm not trying to explain all of this. So I'll explain data activator. I came to this part, so that's how it works. So I'll just escape this, right? So for data activator, that's how it works. You are just setting an activator to move and do something for you. So now I'll talk about a component, just a particular aspect of Fabrics, which is warehouse, because Fabrics is wild. It's just like saying I'm doing Azure. Like I remember when I first started learning Azure, like back then, right? When I learned Azure, I was like, this thing is too hard. I was seeing networking, I was seeing load balancing, I was seeing availability zone, I was seeing replica. I was like, I'm a data analyst, I'm a data scientist. Because then I was still a data scientist, right? I was doing a lot of neural network and the rest when I was in school, when I was trying to learn Azure. I was like, this thing is too much now. So I remember my former boss, Michael Afosi, told me that that's actually my mentor, right? Like I literally know everything I know today is from Michael, and I still give him kudos. He's one of the best person I've ever worked with, and I always give him the kudos. Anywhere I speak about him, I'm always going to speak about him with high respect, right? So I remember when I was not learning again, and Michael was like, no. He explained to me that the way Azure is a full, just like the way university is now. In university, there's a school of engineering. That's where Azure is, right? In a university, there are different faculties, right? There's school of engineering, there's school of agriculture. That's how Microsoft is. So Microsoft now we have Azure is one faculty. You have Microsoft 365, another faculty. You have Dynamics 365, another faculty. They said that is how Azure is, right? So Azure is like a faculty. So in that faculty, there are now multiple departments inside, right? In that department now you have department for computer engineering, you have for electrical engineering, you have for civil engineering, you have for mechatronics, you have for cybersecurity. So in that Azure, now you have to now specify where do you want to fall into. You want to fall into the data engineering aspect, or you want to fall into the data analytical aspect, because we have the enterprise data analyst. But I think Azure, Microsoft is retiring it very soon. They want to replace it with Fabrics because they're retiring it very soon. So they're replacing it with Fabrics. We have the data scientist aspect, we have the data AI engineering aspect, we have the specialist aspect when it now comes to Azure database administrator or Cosmos DB developer. You have the Azure administrator. You have like different aspects. So those are the different departments, right? So now I also want to focus on only fabrics for data warehouse because there are multiple components. So it's like if we start now, we might not even finish, right? Because we've only used an hour plus. So I'll talk about the fabrics data warehouse, right? So for the Fabrics data warehouse, it's the idea it's a centralized repository of integrated data from multiple data sources designed for analytic and reporting purposes, right? So for Fabrics warehouse, it's an high performance database system built specifically for data warehousing need. It is part of a broader Microsoft Fabrics platform which offers a unified solution for all data analytical need, right? So now mind you, me, you might see me writing a lot of synapse because the fabrics warehouse was gotten from synapse warehouse. So please note that. So now, and in warehousing, right, we have two types of process. If you are building a warehouse, you can either build a dedicated SQL pool, or you can build a serverless SQL database, which we also call external table, right? So now for the dedicated SQL pool, they are used for high performance analytics, and remember they are very very expensive actually. So that's why people are always like running away from Synapse because it's expensive, but because it has this what they call massive parallel processing, right? So you have to activate your compute, right? So that's why it is called a warehouse. Warehouse, you don't use warehouse every time. You just go there to store all your. It's like a centralized repository where all your data are usually stored in, right? So it allows for massive parallel processing architecture. It allows for columnar data store. Remember, when you say columnar data store, they are parquet files, right? Columnar that parquet, meaning they're compressed, right? It allows for workload management and resource isolation, meaning that you cannot easily communicate. So it's usually isolated, right? And it's very, very, very secured, but expensive. So expensive. I'm just emphasizing. It's not that it's expensive. The way you can go about it is that whenever you're not using it, always turn off the compute, right? So we have the serverless SQL pool on demand. So this one is what's more like it's faster to create. It's just like you're creating an external table, right? It's more like you do pay per query pricing model. It allows for auto scaling and automatic query optimization, right? Um, every advantage has a disadvantage. So you have to know that every advantage has a disadvantage. So even if you are going for fabrics, you also have to know the advantage and also the disadvantages between fabrics, right? So it's some of the pros, right? The merit or the advantage, we call it that it has a unified data platform. So it's a unified data platform, meaning that if it offers a unified platform for managing data, enabling seamless integration and access across multiple or various data sources. It allows for scalability and reliance. So remember I said scalability, meaning you can easily provision or set up your data warehouse. Flexibility for flexibility in data development, data virtualization, integration with other Azure services. Remember, when I show you the full architecture and the advantage, what Fabrics can do, it allows for other integrations. You can easily integrate with other Azure services, right? Some of the cons, right? Complexity. I don't really, in as much as it is easy to use, but if you're a first time user, it might be complex to use, right? Easy integration, integration challenges. Okay, yeah. So if you're not really from me now, right? I don't really give myself an exception because I have like I use multiple cloud services, right? So I'm very very conversant with, okay, if I'm connected to either Mongo, if I'm connected to Snowflakes, I know the approach I should go. If it's giving me issue, I will definitely figure it out. You get, but we have resources online from Azure, from Microsoft Learn, or you can either use Stack Overflow or our favorite ChatGPT. I don't think anyone doesn't use ChatGPT in Nigeria or it is whatever. It basically uses ChatGPT. So vendor support for now. vendor support is limited to an extent, right? Because say if you're a Microsoft partner, why am I saying it's limited to an extent? Okay, so there's a day I built a solution in my organization, right? A very robust solution that comprises of so many things. I can't just disclose it right now. So there was a part I had issues with, so I had to reach out to Microsoft. And so when I was showing them the entire process of how I built it and everything, the guy said to get back to me, I never go back. So that's how crazy it was, right? So like, so for me, right, one thing I do, because I multifunction, right? So what I mean I multifunction is that um more like an executive, right? So I is if I'm not doing data engineering, I'm doing data analytic, I'm doing data science, or I'm doing power platform, I'm doing administrative. So like, so because the whole data space, right? Because for me, I started as a data scientist. I didn't start as a data analyst or engineer. I started as a data scientist. When I started building neural network, I started deploying. Even my first research paper was on neural network. I wrote a research paper on neural network. That's on COVID-19. Even my first international award was actually from Data Science Nigeria when I built glycoma, done multiple projects for universities and everything, right? So those are, so for me, right? So I tend to multifunction. So when I'm building a solution, I can easily, like, I'll call myself like a mechanic where I just push everything together and I'll weld everything and I'll be the product from it. So that's kind of person I am. But it's always very, very interesting. So most times that vendor support is always very hard. That's if the person you're meeting is not that experienced. And remember, Fabrics is actually new, so you might not really have that much vendor support from Microsoft to help if you are stuck somewhere, or like if most time if you reach out to people, and I know the Nigerian one is called tech experts, right? Most time, like I know that when I built a solution, most sometimes if I reach out to Microsoft, right? Yeah, they help a lot, but sometimes if I'm building like a custom solution, right? They it takes time, but definitely they do help. They do help. They do help. I won't say they don't help. They definitely help a lot, but it's always tricky that way. So cost. Okay, when Fabrics came out, right, it was very hard to determine the cost because we didn't know what they were going to use to determine it, right? It was still we're still contemplating, but now I think they're going for um capacity based, right? So it's capacity based, cost capacity based. Um, so these are just some few architecture, some things you can build at your leisure time with Fabrics, right? You can build at your leisure time. You can see some interesting architecture. You can always try at your hand and just try and build something using IoT Hub or Event Hub with Event Stream, which is almost the equivalent as Stream Analytics. Now you now write MKSQL and you push to Power BI or you push to a SQL, a Azure storage, which is either a data lake or blob storage, or you can get data from multiple data sources. You build a pipeline around it, push it to a lake house or a one lake, and you use a notebook from Databricks. You perform Spark, that's PySpark, push the data to a data warehouse, right? So these are just the different architecture you can try. So talk about a little bit about costing. Remember, I said that um Fabrics is more like capacity based, right? So it's built based on capacity. So one lake costing, it's more like so one lake costing is I don't think much question comes on cost. It's more for administrative, right? So one lake is a data lake built into Fabrics and provides a single place to store all organizational data. So you can see the different costing per month. So it's kind of cheap. It's kind of cheap actually. So data transfer, internal entrance. So you can also do cross-regional data transfer, network shares. Okay, it's actually cheap and it's very, very nice to use. It's not that um right. So now remember capacity based, right? So these are the different capacity. You have your pay as you go, but for Fabrics you can see there are different per units, right? So a different ones. So this thing do come out, right? This SKUs and everything. So there are different capacity based, and you can see the calculation over here, right? So one capacity unit per pay as you go monthly rate calculation, right? So if you have a 0.18 times this thing, if you're using the F2, right? So it gives you like, so this is how much you pay, right? So you just have to just do your own. And most times, right, you can always reach out to Microsoft. They will help you in when you're doing your capacity costing and everything, right? It's helps a lot. Sorry, it helps a lot. So DP preparation, right? So how did I prepare? Because for me, right, I think I already told you already. I'll be honest with you guys. I already had Power BI certification, right? I already had Azure certification. I already had enterprise data analysis certification, right? So I already had those knowledge already, right? So it was just something to just add fabrics into it. So, but for some that they just want to go into fabrics directly, it's might be so this might be the way you might want to go. But for me, right, it might be a little bit different. But I'll just show what I use and some resources I used that actually helped, right? But I'll be honest with you guys. One advantage I had was I already had Power BI certification, Power BI knowledge already. I already had Azure knowledge already. I already had the enterprise knowledge already. You get so coming as I always say that, oh, I started from ground zero and I went up. No, 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 no. You start from ground zero, went up. So I'll be honest with you guys. I don't need to start the way the people bake story up and mix. Oh, you really try. Nah. So for me, right? So the exam is broken down into four sections, right? So the first one, which is usually between 10 to 15% is more like planning, implementation, management solution for data analytical. So one of the requirements is gateway. Remember, I was talking about gateway a lot, right? Access workspace. I talked about workspace, capacity, version control, right? So version control. So there's a little bit, there's a part of the question that comes from Azure DevOps, yeah, and it talks about how do you save your data for DevOps. So is that are you saving as a PBIX file or you are saving as a PBIT? Preferably it's usually a PBIT if you're going through version control, right? Um, so I know the part I know that I had issues with, I'll be honest with you guys, was the fabrics administrative part, right? Because for me, I won't lie to you guys, I don't really use fabrics on a day-to-day. Yeah, but yeah, we've been using fabrics lately in our organization. I use it most for clients, but my primary tool has always been Azure, right? And other cloud Azure and AWS and GCP, right? So because most clients are beginning to request for fabrics. So while now like we're now adopting fabrics more in our organization, right? So I think that's why I had issues with the administrative part of fabrics. But if you always read the Microsoft Learn, you can always get more information about it. So I won't say, oh, know everything. Nah, the administrative part was an issue for me because it's not something I use on a day-to-day basis. You know, I still pass very, very well, but it wasn't something I use day-to-day basis. Okay, so the next 40 to 45% is more of data preparation and serve data. So this is where you talk about your lake house, you talk about your data warehouse, you talk about data ingestion, data transformation using Spice Park, TSQL, and the rest. So data implementation, when you talk about storage mode, optimization, data modeling, role level security, and object level security. So that's RLS and OLS. So RLS stands for role level security. When you set some criteria where people can view. So how do you use RLS? RLS is used in organization when they are hierarchy. Or if you are a SQL database administrator, you should know what they call RLS and OLS, right? So RLS is like I'm setting like restriction to view certain amount of data based on hierarchy. So if I'm in an organization, if I'm a manager of an organization, I should be expected to be able to view all the reports, right? But maybe an intern should not be able to view the entire report. That's why now settings like RLS. That's what we call role level security, right? Where you create some restriction based on hierarchy. Or you also have what we call OLS, object level security, where you are doing things like you are doing things on column level base where you're protecting particular columns or you're doing things on object level base where you're protecting the entire table. So that is usually done on your tabular editor, right? So tabular editor is like an extra tool, like an extra add-in in Power BI. You know that we have Dark Studio, we also have tabular editor, right? So you create object level security on your tabular editor. I think I wrote an article on it one time, like last year or so. So where I explained the entire process, right? So you also have your version control. So version control is, I talked about that. There's also Azure DevOps in the exam question, and there's also what's the name now? There's also deployment pipeline. Remember, I told you if you have been following Microsoft, for those that came early, if you've been following Microsoft from the onset, right? Everyone knew that we're trying to build something like this, right? Because they released data flow, they released data mats, they released deployment pipeline, they released Power BI apps where you can build apps where you share report. You're not sharing report based on your workspace, but you're sharing your report on based on your apps itself. So it gives another extra level of protection where you're not sharing your report, your dashboard based on the workspace. We are sharing it based on your app itself, right? And you also have your analyzation when you're analyzing database on database profiling, TSQL. You're connected to the database based on the XML endpoints and the rest, right? Um, so the exam details. And for my own, I think I had 59 questions. Yeah, mine was 59 questions, right? And it was in three sections, right? We have the I had the one that had like question that just put like a lot of story that's, oh, I'm doing a POC for XYZ companies, right? And to tell me, okay, these are the questions. They have another one and they have like the normal one, and they have another one that's the third section. That one I could not undo. So if you check, be careful in that part, because that one, if you check, I think it's like it's five, right? That last session is five. You cannot go back. That one is a one-time thing. So if you do it, that's all. So as you pass that stage, you can't go back. So if you even go back to edit the rest, you cannot edit that last five, right? So it is. For mine, I had 59 questions, right? But I think it's between 40 to 60, depending on your proficiency. I think there will be a place they'll ask you what proficiency. I think I chose average. I didn't. I didn't choose maybe. I didn't choose expert. I chose intermediate or something. Right? 100 minutes. You can finish before 100 minutes. Actually, 100 minutes is too long. But I don't know, Sha. But you might have to take your time and revise. Um, Pass mark is 70%. That's 700 and above, right? Exam. So for your exams, right, you can either do it online or exam center. For me, I've never done any exam on the exam center before. All my exam always been online. I just wake up in the morning, I do my exam, I go back to sleep, or I do my tasks for the day. But if you're doing it online, please note that if you're in Nigeria, because of our network, I would advise you to do it very, very early in the morning, right? So most time, if I'm doing my exam online at home, I do it like 5:30 or 6 in the morning, because basically the proctors are Indians, right? So I do it by 5:30 or 6 in the morning when I know that the internet is very good. I do my exam before, if I do 5:30 before 6 or before after 6, I'm done, and I know that it's out of it, and I go back to the work of the day. That's my own work of the day, or I go back to sleep or something, right? But if you're doing it at home, you have to like clear your entire space, right? Clear your entire space, like make everything clear. I like no noise, so I close all my windows. I try to empty my room. It's just empty my room as much as possible. So it's just only gonna be my laptop and my router, right? And my inverter or something, right? So whenever I need to take lights, on, so because they are still going to scan your entire room. So if you are doing it at home, right, those are the things you have to consider. So you have to clear your entire room. I used to move my monitor, take it to the living room. You also move everything in my room. I also make sure there's only my workstation um, blank and everything. But if I go into an exam center, it's fine, right? Everyone has that different strategy. Some people prefer writing the exam center because of internet and other thing, which is also advisable too, right? But for me, I write more. All my exams have always been at home. I don't write it in exam centers. For costing, right? So I know that most of us we are going with the that free voucher, right? Because we all of us use the free. I also use the free voucher. Yeah, I use the free voucher to myself, right? Because when I saw it, I was not planning on writing fabrics, but when I saw that there's a free exam to write fabrics, oh, I just jump into it. And, oh, no knowledge is not in there. But as a data engineer, right, I focus more on other tech stack more. So for in the US, right? If you didn't get the voucher, I know that in the US is $165, and in Africa, mostly sub-Saharan Africa, you pay $80, right? But I know for a fact that US, because they have a stronger purchasing power, they have a stronger economy. That's why the prices are a little bit higher. And also, if you're in Nigeria, I know that there's an issue in Nigeria, so you can't pay for the certification as a Nigerian. So you have to either pay buy a voucher, because I know that they blacklisted some countries, Nigeria, Pakistan, some Arab countries. I know Nigeria is one of the countries they blacklisted. So you have to pay through a third party. You have to buy a voucher through a third party. I know when I went my Azure, I had to buy through a third party. I had to call I had to use like my card, like my virtual dollar card, just buy and use a third party or something. So now resources are used, right? So the number one resources I always is Microsoft Learn. So I'll open all the resources for us and we'll see it one after the other, right? So for Microsoft Learn, um, Microsoft Learn one, right? Um, um, exam topic guide, right? So I'm giving you guys some resources that will help. Um, and Fabrics Online, right? That's Microsoft Learn. So now, one of the first video I started watching when I started was this guy's video, because it was in a series actually, and it was very, very helpful, very rich. And I'm coming. there's this stuff that comes out in Teams. It goes and comes. So whenever I'm sharing, it's always very, very annoying. So okay, so this guy's that's learn Microsoft Fabrics with Leo. He has a complete series. You guys can take it, right? Very, very helpful. He explains everything end to end, right? From setting up from setting up Microsoft 365 account step by step, even to monitoring optimization, everything up to preparation for the exams, tips and everything, right? Another one also you can also look at is Sean Lee. Sean Lee actually gave a very, very well detailed process, right? He says, okay, it gave like everything step by step. Say, okay, who are this target audience, right? That's for the DP300. What is the format duration? It gives 100 minutes, multiple choice questions, 40 to 60. I remember I told you mine was um I don't know. There's some message that is dropping. Let me just check first. Sorry guys. Let me just check. I'm seeing a lot of message dropping. I'll just confirm if oh okay. So it says very annoying. Yeah. That's his stuff. Yeah, I'll drop the yeah. I'm gonna drop the what's the name now? I'm gonna give you guys the PowerPoint. Yeah, I'm gonna give you PowerPoint. So PowerPoint has everything. Don't worry, guys. I'll drop it for you guys. Um, he said just beginner. Okay. That's fine. Okay. So back to why I was right. Um, so 70 questions. What is the certification? So the name of certification. This thing is very, very funny. So there's a time I was writing before when I wrote my Power BI exam. It still asked me like, what is the name of the exam I want to write? So funny. So that from that day I started cramming. And then I write, I'll cram the full name, Microsoft Certified Fabric. So this one also comes like, okay, what is the certification name you want to write? And which book? So the person actually really, really broke everything down. Microsoft Learn Practice question, do you recommend practice? Yeah, so it also recommends these are the core area of the exam. So introduction to end-to-end analytics with Microsoft administrative. So I told you that me the part I really fell back in was the administrative part. Why is that? Because it was Power BI administration. Yeah, I'm very good in Power BI administration. But for the fabrics, because I told you that fabrics is not my number one tool, right? Because I use a lot of tools. Just that recently now, a lot of clients have been requesting for fabrics. So now we're like prioritizing fabrics, and most time when we pitch solution for organization, fabrics or synapse for that, they say, oh, they want fabrics because that is to Power BI. So I think that's Microsoft market strategy, because of they have the biggest analytical tool in the world. So why can't they just incorporate everything together and build a full solution, right? So fabrics, right? But it's just that for people that have already had their own solution with Synapse, I think it's going to be very hard for them to migrate, to move, right? So they'll still stick to the Synapse or Azure, right? But for new guys that they just want to move from cloud on premise to cloud, if they tell them Fabrics or Synapse Azure, they will rather go for Fabric. So that's why I told you I really fumbled in this part. I won't lie to you guys. I really fumbled in this part because I don't really do administration that much in Fabrics. I even have my own administrative account. I don't really do that much. So ingestion with data flow gen 2, right? So data flow gen 2. So data flow gen 2 is still the same thing as Power Query, but it is Power Query with a GUI, right? So data flow is also available in Data Factory, but data flow in data fabric uses a Spark or Adobe, right? Adobe engine. So you have to on it or off it, right? So as an Adobe engine. So Spark for some of you that did write Spice Spark or write SQL Spark, or you already used to Databricks or Synapse Spark, right? So Spark is the number one processing tool for data engineer, and it works with what we call parallel processing, meaning that you can have multiple nodes, multiple workers that can work parallel to one another, right? Data Factory. I know most of you know me with Data Factory, but funny enough, I don't really use Data Factory much. It's only when I also feel like writing about it. Get started rather with Lakehouse in Microsoft Fabrics, organization, Apache Spark, Delta Lake. Remember, I just explained the concept of Delta. Delta Lake is just basically Parquet, right? But I compress files, monitoring, understanding scalability in Power BI, creating Power BI model. That's modeling. That's creating relationships and everything. Using optimized tools for performance, enforce Power BI model security. So connect your provide. Okay. Okay, so after you when you have passed the exam, you connect, blah blah blah. So you can see, yeah, person also provided some resources, right, on how to go about it. So remember, I said PBIP. This one works more for life cycle. If I'm going through CICD, right, so it'll come out like, oh, I'm going to save my files PBIP, PBIT, or PBIX, right? So this one, so there are different formats, XML endpoints, X, Y. So this person actually gave a very, very well detailed. That's Sean Lee, an amazing author. He has over 20 years of experience, meaning is my uncle. I don't have that much experience. I'm still green. Okay, so after that, we have Microsoft Learn, right? You can also take the, I think there's an exam demo where you can also take, right? Yeah, take a practice exam. Um, this one is a 50-50 chance, right? Most of the questions here might not come out 50-50. And I'll be honest with you, you can always go online. Microsoft always say don't use exam dump. If you can use it, use it. If you can afford it, afford it. But most times, right? Exam dumps are always online. You can always search online. Exam dumps, you will get it online, right? But they won't give you everything. They might just give like, oh, maybe 20% or 30%. Even me myself, I was like, I just had to just read, go through this one. I remember when I told you that what actually really helped me was I did had Power BI, and also had Enterprise. So I won't say that, oh, I just started only Fabrics. No, 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 no. I did had other proud knowledge of all this technology. So their part I also had to just brush through was more of fabrics aspects and how it works. And let's just try and do some little bit of how practice question, a little bit of practice question. So I'll just bring this one here, come here. So you just only 5 questions because honestly, I need to go very soon. Okay, so questions I just kept like 5 questions, right? And answers and everything. Okay, so now they might ask you, you have a fabric tenant that contains a lake house named lakehouse contained in a lake in a delta lake. The table with 8 column, you receive new. Another thing again, you have to like. So let me make this thing so it be. I don't like the way the thing is. No, 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 no. I just want only one. Okay, yep, cool. Okay, so sorry. One thing again, you have to like take your time and really, 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 really study this. Like take your time, right? It's the thing is that you have to just be careful. That's the thing because the questions can be much and can be boring. So that's one thing you have to like put into consideration. So you have a fabric tenant that contains lake house named lake house one in lake house one. It contains a delta table with 8 column. You receive new data that contains the same 8 column and 2 additional column. The you created a Spark data frame and assign a data frame of variable name df. The data that's a variable name.
Then can you please zoom in for people on YouTube to see? People are struggling to see.
Uh, I'm zoomed.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, sorry,
No
sorry,
problem. No,
sorry. Okay, sorry, guys. Sorry. Sorry.
that's better now. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, sorry. I didn't know. Okay. Okay. So I was saying, right? You have a fabric stainer that contains a lake house named Lake House One. Lake House One contains a delta. Remember, delta are basically parquet, right? And that's 8 columns. You receive new data that contains the same 8 columns and 2 additional columns. You created a Spark data frame. Spark data frame is different from Pandas data frame. For some of us that write Pandas, we create Pandas data frame. There's also Spark data frame, also, right? So you created a Spark data frame to a variable named df. The data frame contains a new data frame. Okay, so you need to add the new data to the data lake table to meet the following requirement. Keep all existing row. Ensure that all the new added data is into the table. How should you complete the code? Okay, now, sorry, 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 I'm actually having code. Sorry, sorry. Okay. Um, sorry. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I have code. Okay, so now, what you gonna do now? Okay, if you look at this question, right? The ones that are already there were the delta was there and the table name was there. So the two empty ones were this one and this one. So 2 questions now. They said that you're going to be putting new tables inside the already existing table, right? You're putting new tables inside the already existing table. So now there are two approaches you can do about that. This part is actually more like a drop down. In SQL, there's something we call offset, right? Offset. Or so you can call it offset, you can call it merge, right? So offset has two functionality. It has both update and append in it. Update and append. That's what offset does. Update and append. So now, if I was offsetting, I'm doing two approach. That's why things like LCD comes slowly changing dimension, right? Slowly changing dimension is when something changes in the already existing data. You have to also want to make some changes. So you can either use a type 2 or type 1, right? Or type 3 rather. Type 2 is actually the most popular one, when it gives you a new row and tells you, okay, this is what has changed, and so on and so forth. So now, for this one now, if you look at this now, if I can achieve this using an offset action, but offset consume more computing power because it's doing two activities, it's doing two actions, it's doing both what update and append, right? That's what offset does. Update and append. So most time we use offset for when we're doing things like SCD, slowly changing dimension, right? So now for this one here, right? I'm going to be putting the new data into the already existing data. Meaning, if it's an SQL, you call it union. I'm unioning table 1 and table 2 together. Or if you are using Power Query, you're appending, right? So the same thing with this. So if you're using Spark, you have two options. Either you append or you override. Who is our lecturer at the background? So, so is it that you are um, appending or you're overriding. But because overriding means I'm changing what has been there before, I'm overriding everything. That's overwrite, right? But I want to just keep the existing table that has been there and put in the new table, right? So that's one. You also want to maintain the same schema properties, right? So when you're reading data in Database, there's an option you can also put schema property where you can set the schema. You can set the schema. You can say, okay, this column give it a string type. This column give it an integer. True. I'm not going to those parts, right? But those are some concepts you have to know, right? So now I want to maintain the same schema process. I say mesh schema true. That's all, right? So if you look at the I also explained it. I said, okay, right. You should set the schema option to true, right? Mesh schema into to true. Why is that? The purpose of mesh schema option allows for schema evolution. So schema evolution also helps you to like, how am I able to explain schema evolution now? If things changes, right, it can also capture it. I can actually explain it better if I'm using ADF, right? But schema evolution is just like it works more when you're doing real time like real time faster analysis where you're trying to like maintain like like how gosh, I'm trying to I know the explanation of it, but I'll put it down. There is the problem. Okay, let's just continue. Don't worry. When it comes to my mind, I'll just explain better. So when you set the option to true, this enables Delta Lake to automatically merge the schema of the data frame. That's the data frame already existing, being written to the schema of the already existing Delta table. This meets the data frame of new column. So if a new column ahead, that schema evolution, and when something changes, that's if a new column changes, it's still going to take the existing property and also the new column and also be added to the destination. That's where you're pushing it into. So I'm using my hand to explain a lot. It's better for presentation actually. Okay, so let's go to the next question, right? Um, what's the next? Okay, what is the next question? Did I put the question this one? Oh, I didn't write this one. Sorry, I didn't complete this one question. Oh, I didn't complete this one question. The questions are much. I didn't complete this one. I didn't put all the options here. Sorry about that. I was watching everything this month. Just gather resources I see online. Okay, let's look at this one now. I didn't complete this one. The questions are not complete. I think maybe this one had a picture, so that's why I didn't complete it. Sorry about that. I was rushing everything this morning. So okay. Question number 3. You have a fabric standard that contains a warehouse name 1. The warehouse 1 contains 3 schema. You know what they call a schema, right? A schema is more like a user. So if you are used to Oracle, if I used to Postgres, MySQL, SQL Server, right? They call it schema. Schema is like I'm giving like more like multiple users. But in Oracle, they call it users, right? So you cannot just create. You can't just say create schema. The way you create schema in SQL Server, you don't say create schema in Oracle, you say create user, then you now set privileges. And Oracle is actually very, very good, but it's just that it's more complex and robust to use, quote on unquote, you get. So now you say create schema, right? So when you're creating a schema in a database, you know that you say create schema, but if it was Oracle, it is create users. So it also does let you guys know. So maybe when you're using Oracle tomorrow now, you are trying to create schema, it is throwing you error, and so it is user, then you now give the user access or administrative right or something. Maybe you're giving him a sys admin, you're giving a database admin, you're giving him just a particular admin or something, right? So I have multiple schemas called schema A, B, C. You need to ensure that user one, that's a particular user. You know, there's a way you create users in a database. If I'm using SQL Server on my computer, I'm using a default user, which is my Windows user. But now I want to have multiple users. I want to, like, let's say for example, I want Francis now to be one of my users, but in that my server, I have multiple database inside. I want Francis to have only access to just one database. So what I will do now, I'll create Francis as a user. I will now give him privileges. I'll assign him a role to a particular database. I'll now determine what kind of role. I want to give him only read role, write role, or administrative role. You get that different kind of things you have to like understand around this, right? So we have multiple schemas. So I said that you need to ensure that a user name user one can truncate schema one only. So that means Francis should have only access to just one of those database. Remember, I said I want to create Francis as a database as a user, but should have access to just only one particular database in my entire server. Right? You know, servers, you can have multiple database in a server itself, right? So now for this, now the same thing now, right? Now, this one I'm saying, okay, a database now, it has multiple schemas. Now I'm creating Francis. I want Francis to have only access to schema one. Right? So now there can be multiple schema. It should not have any access to any other schema, but just schema one. Right? Mm. Let me show how it looks like in real world first. Let me try and open my SQL Server. I just pray my SQL Server works. Mm. Let's see if it opens. If it doesn't open, just continue. Okay, it's coming up. I've opened Oracle, but if I start Oracle, then it start giving going back and forth. Okay, interesting. Okay. So let me stop sharing. I'll switch my screen to this other. I'm using two screens, so this is in this other part. Oh, so I stopped sharing, right? So now the problem now is I want to now know. Okay, so this one is showing, right? Is this still showing in yardstick? Francis, I'll be streaming yard rather.
Yeah, no, your screen is freezing on YouTube, so it's only on things that you can see.
Okay, cool. Okay, so let's try something now. It's frozen on YouTube. YouTube is this yardstick on here, right? Let me see.
Yeah, yes.
I'm coming. Let me try. I didn't know. Okay, let me stop sharing. Stop sharing, and I will share again. Share screen, entire screen, this and this. Let me know if it's up. I think it's up, right, Francis?
Yeah, it's up.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Okay, cool. So I want to just explain something with what's the name now? With like what I was trying to explain now to you guys, like creating a user and assign that user to just any one particular thing. So this is what the guys that we call them database administrator. This is what they do, right? Okay. So what I'm trying to do is okay connect, right? So this is just the default server stuff, right? So now if you go to security here, login. So let's assume I've created a new database here called test user, right? So this test user, I've assigned him to only have access to just one particular data, right? So if I look at all the database, I should have like, okay, one, two, three. So I have like three database, right? One, two, three, right? So now I want to re-log in now as that test user itself. So I'll just disconnect, connect again. This time around I'll use as, so you can also log in with a Microsoft Entra ID. That's multi-factor authentication. So right, so I'll say PW, say, right. So this one, yeah, it has only access to just one database, right? So if I say connect, right? So if I say this, okay, is it this one? Okay, yeah. So I'm using production, new production. So you can see I don't have access to this database here, right? Um, this one here, the same thing, right? But now, if I go to production here, I have access to this. I can make control. I can also still give further restriction to this one also, right? So that's how that part works. So let me just bring that Microsoft Word. I'll drag it to this point since I'm already using this screen here now. I'll also use this screen all through. Okay. Um, let me reduce the size a little bit. Close ribbon. Okay, cool. So sorry about number three. I didn't complete. Maybe just keep. I was trying to just gather questions and just pile up for you guys. Okay, I can see my screen is showing here. Awesome. Okay, so now for the number three now, the question says that I want to ensure that user one has ability to truncate only schema one, right? What I will do now is the two things I need to change is grant. They'll give a question like say grant. They'll put a space. I'll say grant alter on schema. In that schema A to user one. That's all. Because I'm giving I'm giving author access, right? Author privilege, right? Of schema one to the user one. That's it. Schema A rather. Schema A to user one. So what it means that that user one now, right, can now affect schema A. I'm mixing it up. Why am I mixing it up? User is the same thing as schema in Oracle. Sorry. I'll come again. Um, I'm giving an alter grant, right? On schema. That schema, remember, schema is the same thing as user in another database management system. On that schema, right? To user, the user what? User one. I remember I showed you I created a user called test user. That user now I gave him access to a particular database. And I gave him administrative right to that database. I can also restrict it. I can also say, oh, don't give him a sysadmin right. Give him like just a read only right or a write only right. You get like most data analysts in an organization, if a database administrator is there, they give you only read access, right? You can only read. You cannot start querying or do it or something. They'll give you query access, or you cannot now manipulate the data. Most times they'll tell you that don't do it, just create a view. You say create a view using stop procedure, create a view. Then you have just be doing anything you want to do on the view. Don't touch the main data. Don't touch the main table. Create a view on your own. So they tend to split it up that way. Okay, so that's how. So this one now, if the exam itself, right? Sorry, you have like an author. You say this one come as an author. It says schema A, then user one. Okay, so now number two is no, so number four. Now I say okay, you have a fabric tenant that contains a warehouse named warehouse one, right? So the warehouse one contains a fat table. The table name is fat sales. The table has 1 billion rows. You run the following SQL query. That's SQL query. You say create table. So you just say create a new table, which is your test dot fact table as a clone of database owner. That DBO stands for database owner from the fact table itself. You remember when you're creating a view, when we create views in SQL, views are basically virtual tables, right? And views are more lighter and everything, are more virtual tables. When you create a view, what happens is that I create a view, a replica of the already existing data. So when I create a view in SQL, most of the people prefer using stop procedure to create a view. When I create a view, what will happen is that um, if I keep pushing data into the actual table, it will be reflecting in the view, provided the query I used to create the view. Maybe I created the view just to do a aggregation or something, right? Right. That's why most time use of view. That's not process usually your golden layer, right? Your bronze layer is usually your pipeline where you do your data migration, just move data from A to B. Then your silver layer is where you do your transformation, either you're using Spark or you're using data flow. Then your gold layer is usually your store procedure when you now write queries or create views from store procedures, those kind of scenarios. That question, I think that question also came out, right? So that kind of scenario also is what I'm actually explaining here too now. So now for this one, I'm creating a clone, like clone, I'm duplicating it, right? But that clone is just a one-time thing. Clone, I just clone it, that's all. But if it was a view, view is still going to be referencing the actual table. So if I'm putting more data in the actual table, it will be reflecting in the view table itself. You get? So now, create a clone, right? So create a clone from the database owner from fact table sales. So you say, okay, for each of the following statements, select yes or no, otherwise. So I say, okay, um, a replica of database owner sales is created in the test table. Copy the schema, yes. Yes, right? Because clone is basically creating a replica. Remember, clone, you're creating a replica. Yes, because it comes out as option A, yes or no. So this is yes. Um, additional schema changes to the actual table, which is the database owner fact table. We also apply to the test table. No. If it was a view I created, yes. But this is a clone. Remember, this is a clone, not a view. You get? So it's always going to be a no. The same thing to this one now. Changes in DBO also applies no, right? So please note that if it was a view I created, no view is a virtual table of the actual existing table itself. So if I create a view, if I keep pushing data to the view, to be reflecting on, so if I keep pushing data to the actual table itself, to be reflecting on the view itself. You get the logic, right? So now if I keep moving further, um, okay, so let's talk about partitioning. Yep. Okay, okay. So now this is another question again, right? I think I took like 10 questions. Though we're almost done. This is the last part, and I'll send you guys the slide and I'll go and sleep. I'll cook and sleep. I've not eaten. I'll just go cook and sleep. Okay, and get coffee or something. You have a fabric tenants lake house, right? And in the query, you have this PySpark code df.write. You know that there's a difference between write and read. So writing, I'm writing into, read, I'm reading it, right? So data frame, that's spark data frame dot write dot partition by. So partitioning by me, I'm creating like an hierarchy, right, in the data format. So I'm partitioning by year, first by year, then by month. So inside that year, you see month inside. Inside that month, you now see day inside. So that one helps for data quality, data check and everything. So if you're trying to like time travel, all this kind of time travel concept, right? So partition also works best when you're doing things with large data, like you're building large data. It helps for like troubleshooting. Like you just don't move all the data in just a single entity. So you have like multiple partitioning, multiple hierarchy in your data set. So now the mode is override. Remember, the override means I'm changing anything that has been there for you. I think it's just more like a one-time movement, right? And you're not appending, so just like you're pushing. And if it's just there for override it and just go. But the next day to pick the next day. So this one works with things like if you're setting things like um widgets. You're setting widget from data factory to data bricks. You're now using dynamic expression to pick the dynamic file formats. But don't worry, that's not part of the exams. Don't worry, those are another aspect. Just trying to think about it in my head. Okay, so pick yes or no. Right? So I said okay. The result will form an hierarchy of the folder for each partition. Yes, remember, partition for year, month, and day. There's an hierarchy on it, right? Two, the result file partition can be read parallel across multiple nodes. Yes, why can it read parallel? You're using a Spark. What does Spark? Spark gives you the ability to create multiple nodes because it has parallel processing. Yes. The resulting file partition will be compressed. Why is it yes? Remember, it's a packet format. And packet files are what? Are compressed files. They're columnar files, which are usually what? Compressed. So what? Yes. That's the answer. Okay. I was able to explain this part for you guys well. So let me go further. And you need to ensure, okay, this one is a layering stuff. Okay, see, you need to ensure that the layer are populated daily in sequence. That word daily in sequence, such that silver is populated only after the bronze is collected and gold is populated only after the silver. So it's like there's an hierarchy. This aspect is there's a place you have to now arrange in. You arrange in hierarchy Which one comes first? First, second, third, and fourth, right? First, second, third, and fourth, right? Okay. Coming. What's time? Wow. We've used almost 2 hours with Jesus. I was like, I was going more than an hour self. Oh, jeez. Okay, well, no, I'm almost done. So we're having like two. What arrange it in hierarchy, right? So now I said, okay. So now, what solution you must minimize the development effort and complexity. What should you use to execute each step, each set of item to answer? Drag the appropriate size. This one is more like a drag and drop process, right? So, correct items. Each options may be used once, more than once, or you may need to drag the this thing split the bar between and pane or scroll to view. So I think the way the data structure is. So now this is actually the correct answer. So now remember they said that the thing will be moving on a daily basis, right? So what's going to make it to move on a daily basis is a schedule. You can set a schedule, okay, on a daily schedule, right? So first one, a schedule. Next one now, a bronze layer is you're creating a copy pipeline, moving from point A to point B. You also do a copy activity, right? Silver is more like you're transforming. You have done like a transform layer. That is where the analytical work comes to play. They are using data flow for transformation. Are using Spark, right? But if you are doing very very complex transformation, please go for data flow. So I said data flow. Notebook. Don't even try data flow. When I mean data complex, when I'm moving data from multiple files and everything, you have to start appending, merging, and joining. Please just go for Python approach. Don't use data flow. But data flow is if the data transformation might not be that much, so you can go with data flow activity, right? Then lastly, you now have the stop procedure. So a stop procedure is your last layer. That's why maybe you can create a view. Like most especially in the financial sector, the one of the key requirements you have to know how to use stop procedure to like create views or just stop procedure is like you're creating a process where you can be calling you can be executing a SP every time. Maybe an SP that gives you a particular view or something. So right, so that's how stop procedure basically works. Um. Okay, so that's the hierarchy. A schedule, pipeline copy activity, data flow activity, and the store procedure. So the next question is I'm almost done. I'll stop at number 10 and I'll go and take coffee and sleep. So you are analyzing the data in data fabrics notebook, right? You have a Spark data frame assigned with variable DF. You need to use a chart view in the notebook to display the data manually. Which function? Okay, yeah. So the function you use is display, right? So you can use display open bracket the data frame itself. Show most times doesn't show data frame does show open bracket close bracket also works, but it doesn't it works the same way df.ed in pandas works, right? So display gives you a more detailed like if you want to have visualization and everything, display works. So you can easily switch between tabular and visual aspect. I know that in Databricks, right? So Spark data frame in Jupyter Notebook by using the display. Then you put the data frame function. So you put the data frame inside of the function. You say display open bracket the DF. That's the Spark data frame and close it. And if you have a visualization under there, if it's like a table, you can now switch between table view and visualization view. Okay. So this is a very tricky part too in the exam, right? So this particular session comes out in the section 3. This one you cannot when you have selected and pass it, you cannot go back to it. Right? So you have to be careful in this part. So they said that um you have a fabric standard that contains a new semantic model. Remember, semantic model is also the same thing as data set. It was formerly called data set, but now it's called the semantic model, right? So semantic model in one lake. You use a Fabrics notebook to read the data into Spark data frame. You need to evaluate the data to calculate the mean, max, mid, standard deviation value for all the string to for all the string and numerical value. The solution you use the following Spark expression. Dot explain does it meet the criteria? Please no. So when I say I want to get the min max, all those things, you know that there's an equivalent this thing in pandas which is called df dot describe, where it gives you the maximum value, the minimum value, the standard deviation. When you use dot describe open bracket, right? It's called describe in pandas, right? But it is called something else in Spark data frame. So I say df dot explain, please no. So if you go, it's still the same question. Remember that this one is tricky. If you please make sure you know the one you are selecting. Because if you select it and you don't click on next, finish the session, you can't go back to this session again. So that's all, right? So it is actually df.summary. Df.summary gives you everything. It gives you the standard, it gives you the standard deviation, the mean, max, and mode, right? And it said df.show. Df.show doesn't give you, df.show just shows you tabular table, right? Shows you only tabular table. And okay, so this is just a normal SQL query, right? So they say get this one. So this one, I was actually following the normal step for SQL. You know, SQL has a step where you say select, then you have from, then you have where, you have group, and you have having, right? So this was the only one that they had to follow it, right? So if you read the question, yeah, you said okay, you have a fabrics warehouse that contains a lake. So these are the different columns. You need to write a TSQL. So if you are very good conversant with SQL, you're good to go with this part. You don't really need to have any issue. So that is all. Thank you very much. I will stop sharing my screen. Any question? So stop sharing here, and I'll stop sharing here. Thank you. Okay.
Wow, that was an amazing session from Temidayo.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much.
It was a fabulous session. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So now I learned a lot myself. I didn't even know that we spent 2 hours. I was just enjoying myself while all of this was going on. Thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate, and I'm sure that the people in the community also have learned a lot of things. I won't even say one or two because this one is more than one or two. I'm sure everybody has learned a lot from Temida himself. Thank you so much for coming. So, guys, if you have any question, you can drop them now. For those that are on Teams, if you want to ask your question live, just raise your hand and then you can ask your question. And for those that are on YouTube, you can drop your question on the chat. Also on Teams, also you can drop your questions on the chat. That's if you are mic shy. So drop your question so that you can get answers to them live. So that's one of the reasons why you are here, so that you can get answers to your question. Please do it to drop your questions. So thank you very much, Temindayo. It was such a wonderful session. Thank you for sharing your experience. I
Yeah.
really enjoyed your session. So I know that a lot of people are going to be writing their exam this week. So I wish you the very best. We've given you everything to the best of our knowledge from the community side, and we wish that um, you pass and clear your exam. So Temida will be sharing with us the slide I used and some of the resources also. So for those that were not here last month, I had dropped the repository where I had compiled all the links to the Microsoft Lens, to the live Fabric Cloud Challenge, Fabric Cloud Challenge, and all of those things, so that you can actually get one direct access into it. So that's about it. So by show of hands, how many people are still waiting to write their exam? Let me see. Let me see. So we are waiting to receive a good news of you clearing your exam. Okay, Olufola is still going to write the exam. So thank you. Arudo Malikon too is also going to be writing his exam this week. So also Faith Igwe. Thank you very much. Thank you for your reaction. So for the last time, if you have any question, I think there is one question on the chat. It seems there is one question on the chat. So I'll just try and read it out for Temidayo. Maybe you can just take that. And if I have any other thing I want to add. So the question is, what chance do you think an absolute beginner what chance do you think an absolute beginner has? I haven't seen Microsoft Fabric on Twitter. So when I saw Fabric and build Relevant, I decided to take advantage of it and get the voucher. I don't have any experience with data engineering or Fabric, but I'm learning via the build challenge. How realistic are my chances? So, Linda, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, but you can mute yourself because it's echoing like in two places. But yeah, okay. So it's very possible. See, the whole concept is let's do I said what I said was that what helped me um um faster to grab fabrics was because I already had experience in other technology. You get so if you're learning from Microsoft Learn, you will definitely pass it, right? Fabrics is so the thing about Microsoft, they're trying to make it is as easy as um possible to enter. So you don't need to have you need to go through that complex um process. That's why you see if you see more core if you see core data engineers, they don't like fabrics. They're like, nah, because for them to become a data engineer, they went through L, right? But fabrics makes it so easy and so simple to use, right? I you know what I'm talking about. So it makes it easy to use and everything, right? So learning from Microsoft Learn is amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing, right? So some people, everyone has different learning route, right? Some people they prefer learning by audio visuals. Some people they prefer learning by reading, right? Anyone you want to go is perfect, right? Anyone you want to go for is perfect. If you don't go through audio visual, it's perfect. Microsoft Learn is very, very, very robust, right? It covers a lot. I don't like to. It covers a lot. But me, most times, when I'm using Microsoft Learn, I tend to get bored. So I rather go and watch a video online. So that's me. That's everyone has a different learning. So most times, if I'm stuck with something, I go with Microsoft. So I do both. So if I watch the video, I'm good with the video. That's why I also dropped that link of that guy's video that is going to give a guide through entire fabrics and how it works. Watch his video, use Microsoft Learn, do it hand in hand, and please, most very important thing, build projects. You can't just say you learn something without building an actual project on it. You get so build projects, showcase it to the world. Use Twitter, LinkedIn. I think one where I met, actually got to know about Francis was when I knew when Fabrics, I actually knew when Fabrics came out. I knew before it came out, right? I actually had insider, right? But and Femi was one of the I said Fabrics. Francis was one of the people that first like really hits the nail on the head with fabrics. He started dropping content on fabrics. Even me back then, I was like, I was actually very skeptical about fabrics because I was like, okay, I was looking at it from the another point of view, like um what's going to happen to synapse, right? So that's why I didn't really want to rush into fabrics. I was like, okay, because I knew I want about Microsoft, I know about Microsoft is that they release a lot of technology, right? And if they're not getting traction, they will like pull off. But right now there's a lot of traction for fabrics, like right now. That's why you see that I'm really pushing a lot of um valuable professionals in it, like MVPs in it and everything. So please, if you're taking fabrics, right, it's going to be the future for Microsoft integration with Power BI. So now, is that going to be the future of data? No one knows because there are a lot of data solutions. But if you're learning only on Microsoft Learn, and for me, I use Microsoft Learn and I use YouTube. I won't say, oh, I have one. I use only Microsoft Learn. Nah. I didn't say, I read everything Microsoft Learn. I prefer for it. No. I told you what the resources I use. You get so because I don't think I need to start capping for you guys. While human beings, everyone wants to pass. You want to pass your exam. I want to pass my exam. So I'm just giving you like a guide. So just going through Microsoft Learn is good, right? It's good, and you also have some live. You have some like a sandbox where you can do some virtual tests and everything. It's very very good. But for me, I prefer audio visuals. I prefer audio visuals. That's why I watch videos on YouTube. If I'm having an issue now with a code or something, right? If I'll first go through Google, then Stack Overflow. I don't even go to ChatGPT first. ChatGPT is like because the kind of problem I solve, ChatGPT doesn't give me what I want because it's more of like logical. It's not just code based. It's like logic. So Stack Overflow are more of human interaction. So I rather go through Stack Overflow. So that's like, so some people when I learn if they're writing a code and they have a fault or they have something they're building logic, they go to ChatGPT first, right? So everybody have different approaches. For me, I rather go to Stack Overflow first. And if I've not seen the question, I ask the question on Stack Overflow, someone will definitely give me the answer. So different people with different approaches of doing things. So now for my own learning, I would rather go with Microsoft Learn and YouTube videos work hand in hand. That's why I gave you that link of that video. I think I was able to answer our question. And please do projects as much as possible.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Temi Dayo. I keep missing Temi Dayo, Temi Dayo. Oh, and I don't want to call you Timmy. So thank you so much, Timmy. That yeah, to add to the question you answered, I think a very good way to start is also Microsoft. Even though it might not work for you, like you said, some people prepare audiovisual materials, but then it just give you like this broad overview of the entire thing. And why I would say that you have a chance is that I remember when I was writing my DP 500 exam, which is going to be retired anytime soon. At that point, it was
Yeah.
very difficult to access Azure Portal in Nigeria. So the only thing I rely on was just Microsoft and the sandboxes. So don't just do the content. You have to take the exercise and the project within the Microsoft Learn platform. So you can use those sandboxes and take the practical. While Temidai was taking his session, I was just messing around on Teams. I was saying that what if Microsoft starts saying that we should do project defense before you get your certification? So it's not just enough for you to get your certification. You also need to actually push out project there. Doing project is what convinces you yourself and give you that confidence that okay, you know this beyond just passing your exam. So I wish us the very best in our exam in the coming days, and I hope to see a lot of congratulations in this week. And also, like, as a way of the direction in which the community will be following now that our exams are over, we are going to be going back to hands-on session where we are going to be building projects, we are going to be doing a lot of stuff. But beyond that, also maybe sometimes we hold our next meetup. For those that are here for the first time, we have our meetup every third Saturday of the month. So maybe for our next meetup, we are going to have a session maybe on Twitter on Twitter space where we are going to be talking about how we are going to drive adoption of Microsoft Fabric in Africa, because beyond just passing the exam, we also want to get hands-on and solve real world problem with Microsoft Fabric. And the only way you can get this Microsoft Fabric coming from the pricing side is when organizations are actually adopting Microsoft Fabric, and that is where you doing projects and putting it out there for people to see comes in. So we need to do projects and put it out there. So we are going to have that conversation. I already have a list of people I want to talk to, experts in the field of data, where we can have that conversation around driving the adoption of Microsoft Fabrics. Because, like Linda said, I'm a modern data engineer. I don't like mechanical lifting. Like you need to touch me. So communication about this space is going to come out, and then I implore us to attend so that we can come up with strategies that we can use to drive the adoption in our organizations. And someone said Gen Z data engineer. Oh well, I like soft life. All right, guys, thank you so much. Thank you for coming.
So,
So I will
Francis, I've sent you. I'll send you the slide now.
Okay, okay. So I will drop the slide in the WhatsApp page, and maybe I'll add it to the GitHub repo so that people can just download this slide. Thank you so much for coming. Do have
Bye,
a
guys.
fantastic weekend.
Okay,
Bye.
bye. Bye,
Yeah, bye
guys.
everyone.